Welcome to I-24 News Defense, your weekly opportunity to receive broader perspective on strategic affairs, brought to you in cooperation with Israel Defense Magazine. Tonight we will try to find out how big is the Iranian espionage inside Israel, explore the training of Israel's border police, and take a look at a very unordinary coffee house. But before we begin, let's take a look at what else is happening in the world.
We begin in the United States, where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the 68th UN General Assembly. In his speech, Netanyahu castigated the U.S. diplomatic outreach to Tehran, telling world leaders Iranian President Hassan Rouhani is a wolf in sheep's clothing, determined to use a political thaw to advance his country's nuclear program. The Israeli leader's comments came a day after President Barack Obama reassured him during a White House meeting that the U.S. would use force if necessary to prevent Iran from obtaining an atomic bomb. Heading now to Syria, where United Nations chemical weapons inspectors are in Damascus to begin the process of verifying and eliminating chemical weapons use in Syria's civil war. The UN mission was hammered out by Washington and Moscow after an August 21st chemical weapons attack in Damascus prompted U.S. threats of airstrikes against the Syrian government. The mission is expected to continue until at least mid-2014. And moving to South Korea, where the army showed off new missiles designed to target North Korea's artillery and long-range missiles in downtown Seoul, marking Armed Forces Day. The ballistic Hyunmoo-2 with a range of 300 kilometers and the Hyunmoo-3, a cruise missile with a range of more than 1,000 kilometers, were put on public display for the first time in a rare military parade.
Israel's Shin Bet security service revealed a few days ago the arrest of Ali Mansouri on September 11th. Mansouri, an alleged Iranian spy, carried photographs of the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv. The suspect, holding a Belgian passport, was sent to Israel by Iran's elite Republican guards and arrested at Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion International Airport. More in this next report.
Israel's local court has extended for 8 days the detention of Ali Mansouri, a Belgian citizen accused of spying for Iran. Mansouri was arrested by the Israeli General Security Service, Shin Bet, 2.5 weeks ago, was under investigation ever since. The suspect is a Tehran native who has lived in Turkey and Belgium and was arrested in Israel's Ben Gurion Airport on his way back to Belgium. According to officials, Mansouri tried to build an economic infrastructure that will eventually supply intelligence to Iran. Mansouri reportedly tried to make contact with some Israeli businessmen, but his lawyer dismissed the allegations.
The apocalyptic picture that the Shin Bet is painting is a lot more complicated, and the attempt to ascribe to our client coming here in order to carry out attacks in Israel is far from reality and could not be based on anything. The case is currently under investigation, and unfortunately we cannot give any more details. We are not at liberty to do so.
Israeli law enforcement was reportedly ordered to lift the gag order of the arrest yesterday. Some officials wonder whether the timing of the release might be connected to Netanyahu's meeting with Obama and the recent warming of Iran-US relations. Mansouri will remain in custody for now, perhaps an evidence that the situation between Iran and Israel is still much more complicated than it looks.
Joining me in the studio is Yossi Melman, Senior Security and Intelligence Analyst. Good evening.
Good evening.
So how big is this spy?
Well, he is not big. Ali Mansouri himself, or Alex Mans, as he called himself after changing his name in Belgium in order to obtain a Belgian passport, is less important. He is not that significant. What is really unusual in this case and outstanding in comparison to past precedents is the Iranian effort to establish here a long-term sleeping cell. Basically, he came here to create the infrastructure under the guise of a business operation, a backdoor in which later on the Iranian agents, intelligence experts would be able to enter. So it was a backdoor, and later on the professionals were supposed to arrive.
How extensive are the efforts, the Iranian efforts in Israel?
Well, a few years ago, the Shin Bet opened, I would say more than a decade ago, opened a special department dealing with counter-espionage in regard to Iran. This means that Iran is enhancing its efforts to collect information about Israel, but it's still at a very embryonic at this stage. Luckily enough for Israel, Israeli capabilities covering intelligence coverage of Iran is much, much better than the Iranian one.
Yes, but can we assess already the damage that he managed to do?
Well, in this particular case, there was no damage. He was exposed before he managed to open any business. He came here 3 times. He tried to be engaged with Israeli business partners. He was contemplating to open a storage, which probably was supposed later on to allow the Iranian agencies.
But he did take footages, thousands of footage that he could have sent already.
Nowadays, to take a picture of the Israeli sea coast.
You only need Google Earth.
Yes, or the even the American embassy. There are pictures with better perspective, better resolution from Google Earth. So I think taking the photos was more of a test set for him by the Iranians to see how determined he is to execute their orders, but that's not that important.
He was operated by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards, and that is unusual, right?
No, well, the Revolutionary Guards is basically a parallel military,
But not an intel organization.
No, they have intelligence units, and he was actually operated by a special group within the Revolutionary Guard, which is called the Al-Quds Force, and this is their foreign arm. The Al-Quds Force is running basically Hezbollah, is giving orders to Nasrallah, is involved in the war in Iraq, and is also in charge, responsible for executing terrorist operations outside Iran, including against Israeli targets in the last year and a half in India, Thailand, Georgia, and any other countries.
Yes, Melon, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And now for something completely different. The Raptor Cafe is the name of the flight line dining facility in Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. This next report has more.
Jet fuel powers the F-22 Raptors. But what keeps airmen on the Langley Air Force Base flight line moving? Part of the answer is the food served at the Raptor Cafe, Langley's flight line dining facility. Managing the Raptor Cafe's inventory requires a keen eye for detail and a willingness to reach out to other airmen.
I'm the type of person that I have to ask questions. If I don't understand something, I have to ask you the question.
Since joining the Raptor Cafe team in April, Sergeant Carrero has played a major role in keeping airmen fed and keeping the flight line moving.
A large drill which simulates huge riots took place this week in the north of Israel. The man in charge was Superintendent Ron Krieg, commander of the Crowd Management Division of the Border Police. Daphne Peles was also there.
Equipment, shielding, skills, and a lot of confidence. You will find them all in the Crowd Management Division of the Israeli Border Police's training base.
The Israeli Crowd Management Division was established in 2005 as part of the police's desire to improve its preparedness to major events. More skilled officers are in the Israeli authorities' interest as well as the civilians' interest. We ensure the professionalism, consistency, and proficiency of all police forces and, of course, the special unit for public disorder.
The ultimate goals of training are restraint and absorption, and every Israeli policeman goes through them at least once a year.
Israeli border police cadets, officers, and even ordinary police officers undergo training for dealing with riots as part of our training.
The division trains professional forces as well as less skilled forces, but everyone speaks in a uniform language. As a commander, you can talk to commanders from other units with certain code words that you both understand immediately and collaborate well.
The drill this week simulates a wide range of public disorder scenarios with civilian characteristics.
We take care and train the troops for every possible event, from small public disturbances and even arrests of individual criminals, and up to major events in football stadiums and massive public riots.
We live in Israel where public disturbance events happen often. They include student demonstrations, but also riots with much more violent events in the West Bank that can even put lives at risk. The big drill today prepares us so we can react in the best way possible when we go out to the field.
We want to do the job as fast as we can and with the least damage to those we face.
In a day that every civilian with a smartphone is also a journalist, cops face another major challenge.
We cooperate with the media and explain the troops that this is the policy. Media training includes simulations like placing a cameraman close to the commander or instructor. The goal is to build his self-confidence, to let him understand that he can command and manage the event even with a camera in front of his face.
Joining me in the studio is Major General retired David Sur, member of the Israeli Parliament and former head of the Border Police. Good evening.
Good evening.
So how important is the crowd management division in a country like Israel?
It's very important. I think we came to that conclusion after 2000 riots and events, which 13 people were killed on those during those demonstrations. And there was a few decisions were taken after the whole investigation of the Supreme Court. We saw the training, which is a very, very fundamental issue for those troopers and police officers. And also strategically, they were taking a few decisions, like to expand community policing in those areas which we can maybe diffuse the aggression before...
Prevent it from even starting.
Exactly. Also, we realized that some of those communities are looking at the police as an enemy, especially when we're talking on the Israeli Arabs communities. So putting those community policing is creating a dialogue before the things are happening. So this is a very fundamental issue.
This is the main problem, because the best result of a riot like that is when nobody gets hurt.
Exactly. But unfortunately, we see a lot of events which talking is not enough. So we have to prepare those kind of units. We did also a few decisions which expanded very large in numbers the units which are also equipped and also trained to face this kind of demonstration. We put a lot of non-lethal weapon because unfortunately we saw that in 2000, once we didn't have enough non-lethal equipment, so they had to use live ammunition. Right. Also, we found that if you are putting a majority of police officers facing this kind of demonstration, so they can act professionally, and if there's a minority of police officers on a large demonstration, so immediately they will use excessive force.
Yes, but the non-lethal weapons, like the electric shotguns, there was lots of criticism lately.
Well, this is not for demonstration. This is a different issue, which I think with all the criticizing, It's a quite efficient, non-lethal weapon. It's used all over the world, and we even heard yesterday the commissioner and the committee of in the Knesset, which is explaining why it's very important. It's even better using that than using, you know, of course, weapons, but even.
As we saw in the report, the media is another big player in this situation. As a former police chief, how do you deal with that?
It's a very, very crucial issue, I think, because today everybody is having this camera. So I think there's a lot of training going on, telling to the police officers, even sometimes, you know, the image, the things which have been looking from the camera. You as a journalist probably can say that sometimes, you know, the camera can even lie.
Right.
And it's depend on the angle, depend on the from what point you start with that. But anyway, this is something, a big issue, which is all the time being
And you have to be aware of that.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining me tonight. That was all we had time for tonight. Be sure to catch us next week for another edition of I-24 News Defense. To update with the news, log on to www.i24news.tv. Have a safe night from Jaffa Port.